Imagine, a podcast series by Imagine Theatre.
Hello again, I'm Martin Ballard. Welcome to episode 43 of this podcast series from one of the biggest producers of pantomime and children's theatre in the UK, with Christmas almost upon us and the panto season in full swing.
For more information, go to their website at www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.
I hope you're well. I'm just wondering whether or not you've finished the Christmas shopping. No, me neither. Now, last time, Business and Marketing Director Sarah Bowden gave us a tour of Imagine headquarters as final preparations were being made to sets and costumes, and trucks were already starting to queue up to collect for theatres all over the UK. Don't worry if you missed that or any of the other previous episodes with creatives, actors or behind-the-scenes tours of Imagine Theatre, because you can catch up with them all at any time. They are all still available. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the series so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. This time, I'm absolutely delighted to have been joined by the actor, writer and director, Christian Patterson. How are you, Christian?
I'm incredibly well, Martin, and how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I should have said Borodard, I guess, shouldn't I?
Borodard indeed, and it's a beautiful bright day here in Swansea. I hope the sun is shining where you are.
It certainly is. Swansea born and bred. How did you first get that appetite and that sort of desire to become a performer?
I suppose the first thing that happened was my cousins were doing ballroom and Latin dance, and they were down in the Swansea Banqueting Hall in our beautiful city, and my grandmother took me to see them sort of dance in a competition at that particular place. And I must have been about 5, and I was kind of transfixed. And she turned to me and she said, would you like to do this? And so I found myself every Saturday morning, first of all, going and learning how to ballroom dance, Latin dance. And then I got a partner, Amanda Murphy, and we danced until we were 12. I outgrew her, unfortunately, otherwise I would have stayed on. But by that time, we'd been all around the country. We'd won all manner of cups and things, We were really the couple to watch, as it were, But I was just absolutely... I loved the sequins, I loved the costumes, I loved the music, and I loved the atmosphere. So I suppose that's the first thing that got into my blood.
Did you specialise in Latin or any particular ballroom dance?
I would say our speciality was Latin, and I would say it was the jive. We were pretty good at jumping around, I'm not so good at it now. I tend to dent floors. But, that was our speciality then. And we won all manner of cups, that have been melted down and used for other people's cups now.
It's interesting because in Leicester, with me this Christmas, is AJ Pritchard and his brother Curtis. AJ, of course, formerly one of the professional dancers on Strictly. And so many of the Strictly dancers have gone on to do other things in the entertainment industry. Many of them appear in panto every year.
I heard about them last year, actually. They were down the road from us because I do panto in Stoke, as you know, and they were down in Wolverhampton. They were there and were very successful, and people loved them. So I think you can have a lovely Christmas.
I think we are. What about your first panto as a child? Do you remember which one you saw?
I do, and it's really weird because just recently, literally a couple of months ago, the guy that does he's sort of the unofficial historian of Swansea Grand, but he has written a superb book about it. He actually broke the date for me as well. I think it was my birthday, 18th of March. If you listeners could get the calendars out, write that in. And we went down to... My gran took me to the Swansea Grand Theatre, and I remember going up to the box office, and I remember her asking for a ticket in the gods. It was cold, hard stairs outside the Grand then, that you went up and up and up and up and up. And we would have stopped on the steps a number of times because my gran was elderly, bless her, and... by the time we got up to the top, there was loads of people there cheering and waiting for the panto to begin. And the curtain went up, and I will never in my life forget it. There was so much colour, so much atmosphere. It was so funny, and it was sad as well. There was a lot of pathos in it. And the 2 stars of that were... I guess our version of Eric and Ernie, really. Ryan and Ronnie. And Ryan Davis was just one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. And that would have been in 1977, so I would have been 5. And a few months after that, Ryan sadly passed away in New York from complications to do with asthma. But he was a comedy genius. And I remember him on that stage being so funny. He did this thing with flags where there was flags on this rope going right away across the stage, and he was pulling it and pulling it and pulling it and getting pulled back and sliding into the wings and stuff. And eventually these flags went by and by and by and by and by. And then when it came on the other side, it was tied around his waist. And I just remember thinking, that's absolutely amazing.
It's amazing how much of an influence those early theatre experiences have on children. We'll talk about your own experience as a performer in panto, but they stay with you, those memories, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And I think it's really important because for me, theatre, live theatre, is everything. I mean, I do a mixture of other things, in my working life. I just think live theatre where it's pulsating in front of you, there's the probability, the possibility that something could go wrong and the performer might have to make things up and get it back on track. It normally goes smoothly, but it's a beautiful thing. And the culmination is what you're seeing on stage because, everyone else around the back of the stage, the sound person, the light person, the designer, the costume people, the tech guys, everyone is making it work. You're just watching the swan gliding over the top of the water while the feet are kicking under the water behind the scenes.
So when did you first think you might want to be a swan gliding on the surface of the water then? When was your first sort of experience as a performer? Was that at school or in a youth theatre or something?
No, it was at school. The first 2 or 3 years of drama, which were, the first 2 years were compulsory because you had to take all the subjects and then make the choices in the third year. But the first 2 years were taught by a games teacher, the drama, it was just terrible. And I was quite surprised, actually, at how many climbing up the rope exercises drama included. I was stunned and walking on upside down beams and things, and I was thinking, this is drama. Oh, I don't like it. And then in the third year, a proper drama teacher called Denise Cavalli, she joined the school, and it was like a key opening a door. And I thought, oh, this is amazing. It actually ruined the rest of my education, if I'm being completely honest, because as soon as I'd found drama, if I wasn't in my real classes where I was supposed to be, people would say, where's Christian Patterson? And someone put their hands up and say, he's in the drama studio. I became absolutely obsessed. And the first production that I did for school was Grease, and I played Vince Fontaine. And then I thought, yeah, this is it. And then the next year it was Jesus Christ Superstar, and I played King Herod, and I thought, ooh, laughs, this is quite good. I quite like this. And in the third year then I played Higgins in My Fair Lady, and I thought, ooh, singing, I quite like that. So that was sort of the launch into it, really.
You went on to do so many incredible things and still do on stage with the RSC, the National, the Welsh National Theatre and others. But I guess the first sort of leap of faith for you was going to the Welsh College of Music and Drama. How did that come about?
Well, I'd gone to Gorsimon College to do a BTEC in performing arts, and towards the end of it, there was people saying, oh, well, I think I'm going to audition for drama school, and it was a real sort of, what moment to be, what we could do this for a living type thing. We could train and then go out into the real world and do this for a living. Be one of the people that I see on stage, be one of the people that I see on TV. And by that point, I'd been regularly going to Swansea Grand and seeing people like Richard Todd, I saw in the Business of Murder, and some of the great actors of our time. And I was just thinking, wait a minute, this is extraordinary. And actually I saw Les Dawson in Run for Your Wife, and that was a real eye-opener because I love Les Dawson. I loved him as a comic then, but I thought, oh, listen to this audience laughing. And I was saying that through tears of laughter myself. And so I thought, well, I'm going to apply for drama school as well then. So I applied for the Welsh College of Music and Drama. Yeah, there was no Royal when I was there, Martin. I'm old. So basically, I applied for 4 drama schools and I got into 3, and I got cold feet about the 2 that were far away. One of them was quite a renowned drama school, and I thought, everyone was saying, you've got to go there, you've got to go there. And I was thinking, wait a minute, why am I being swayed by everyone's decision? I want to go to the Welsh College of Music and Drama, and that's where I'm going to go. So I went there, and that was extraordinary. But the first year, they spend, of course, stripping away the faults that they see in you as a performer. And then the second year, they rebuild them. And it was in the second year that I had a massive crisis of confidence. And I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't see the wood for the trees, And I went to the head of acting, a man called Andrew Neil, who's been like a massive influence on me as a performer. And he said, look, you are making incredible progress. You're starting to listen and respond to the person on the other stage as opposed to people who wait for their cue and say their line. And he said, you have to stay. And I spoke to another teacher called Peter Doran, who is retiring from the Torch this year, but has been there for a number of years. He said the same thing, and I thought, well, I trust their opinion. So I stayed. And the third year was absolutely extraordinary. But I was one of those people that thought, when I leave, I don't know if I'll ever work and blah, blah, blah. There was people in my year, not necessarily in my class, but in my year, that were thinking they were going to go out and New York was going to call and say, you must play this part on Broadway. And I was thinking, I don't even know if I'll work on Tooting Broadway, let alone. But the business has been very, very, it's kept its half of the bargain, and I've always tried to keep my half of the bargain.
What was your first job? Can you remember? A lot of people talk about being a spear carrier, or in panto terms, boy with bucket or something. What about you? What was your first job?
First professional job was in Leicester at the Haymarket, and it was with Paul Kerrison. It was Guys and Dolls. It was a fantastic production. It had played over in Dublin, and then there were some people who were unable to travel with the cast, so he was looking for people to make up the cast. And yeah, I basically was gangster with a couple of lines, but I understudied Mark Roper as Big Julie, and I also understudied Nicely Johnson. I actually went on for a week because the actor got ill. Well, that was like a drug. But Leicester Haymarket, I mean, it's such a beautiful theatre, and I've worked there a couple of times actually, and I toured there a couple of times, and yeah, it's a really beautiful venue, and the council need to do something with that venue.
In terms of your career and the amazing things you've done, we spoke last time about your one-man show playing Harry Seacombe, and we talked about panto being a bit like the Goon show, because the Goons could take you anywhere and everywhere just using your imagination with sound, and panto is very similar, but I mean, that must have been a joy. Harry Seacombe is a legend. The Goon Show is a legendary radio programme, of course.
Oh, for me, it's the purest form of laughter. There's something in every show that will make you laugh out loud. I know I shared that gag with you about Neddy Seagoon saying, I disguised myself as a bale of tobacco and escaped in the nick of teen. And, I mean, that's just absolutely genius. But
What?
Ha ha ha! Hello, boy! I was massively influenced by people like Harry Seacombe, Spike Milligan, and Peter Sellers, and in the early days, obviously, Michael Bentine as well. And I loved Potty Time and all that sort of stuff. Seacombe came from my hometown, about 6 miles away from where I was born. So obviously, there was this big star on the radar as I was growing up. But then I got to meet him, and he gave me my degree, and he gave me the best advice, unknowingly, the best advice ever to playing him. He said, Lady Myra was there, and she called Harry over and said, he's a Swansea boy, And he said, oh, are you a singer, boy? I said, oh, I do sing. I said, actor. He said, do you know how to do 8 shows a week? And I said, no. He said, keep it in the nose, boy, keep it in the nose. And I thought, right, okay, well, that's what we do then, Yeah, that show, I did Ying Tong, A Walk with the Goons, at what was then the West Yorkshire Playhouse, and then we took that into the West End. After it, I thought, I've got to do something more with this, And I approached a director friend of mine called Phil Clark, and he said, well, let's put you with Helen Griffin, who was a renowned Swansea actress and writer and a dear friend of mine. And we co-wrote Cwmbanish in the Evening with Harry Seacombe, which we toured throughout Wales. And it was a true labour of love. But, one night we were down at the Taliesin, and my poor stage manager, who did everything, put the set up, put my wig on, did everything, he came back and he said, everything all right? You feel all right? This is Saturday night, the last night in the Taliesin. I said, yeah, fine. He said, you're okay? Yeah. And I said, what's the matter? And he went, nothing. He said, I'm just checking if you're okay. But when you think something's not right. Did the show, and he came back and said, how was that? I said, I really enjoyed that. I think that was one of the better ones, And he said, oh, good. He said, there's 14 Seacombes waiting for you in the bar. Well, smell it, I was sitting in it. Do you know what I mean? It was like absolutely terrifying. But they gave me their massive seal of approval, and I went on to do a radio play, actually, with Katie Seacombe, who I absolutely adore. And it was adapted by David Seacombe. who is a tremendous photographer and just one of the nicest people you're ever likely to meet, you know. So, yeah, it was a real labour of love.
When you actually began your acting career, how long did it take you to do your first panto?
Well, I did panto with the place where I worked. We did a works panto at Pontardawe Leisure Centre. But they were just staff pantos that we performed. They were brilliant. And Paul Walker, the manager of the Arts Centre and the Leisure Centre, he used to play Dim, and he was extraordinary. He was absolutely brilliant. Now, my first professional panto, I went into the world, as it were, in 1995, and it was Christmas 95. And it was for John Spillers. Mm-hmm. And it was down in the Woodville Hall in Gravesend, and I played Aladdin in... I played Aladdin. No, I didn't. I played Abanazar. Can you imagine me as Aladdin?
I don't know. I could see you in fishnet tights.
Hey, I don't need much encouragement, I'll tell you that. It was Abanazar in Aladdin, and some extraordinary people in there. But John Spillers I just loved the man. He's an extraordinary character, you know. He was always immaculately dressed, you know, beautifully dressed, beautifully turned out. Always had a cigar. And he said to me, but little did I know at the time, the rest of the cast said to me, yeah, that's not going to happen. He said to me, if this panto makes money, boy, we're all going to Portugal. We're going to buy a villa in Portugal, you know. And I thought, brilliant, I'm going to Portugal, you know. And the others are going, yeah, that's not going to happen. but he was a lovely man, and he offered me panto for years after. But, you know, unfortunately I was doing other things then, and I didn't come back to it until 2006.
Was his wife called Marlene by any chance?
Honest to God, he was Boise. He was Boise. He didn't look like him, but absolutely expected him at one point to go, you know, now listen, I've got a note for you in Act 1, son. Go quicker there. And by the way, do you want to buy a full cortina?
You've done all this incredible theatre work, and obviously you're doing film and television as well, but also you've been writing throughout. Now, you write 3 pantos in Wales, or you are this year for Imagine, but when did all the writing begin?
I've always written in one capacity or another, even if it's just for myself. I was a diarist for the majority of my life, though I stopped about 10 years, 12 years ago, I suppose. I think one of the things that being a diarist teaches you is, 1, you've got a page, so be concise, get on with it, but 2, to be completely honest. And I think characters that are well written are always honest in one way or another. It might be by what they're saying or by what they're doing. They might be lying, but, you know, if the audience are part of that, that's absolutely delightful, obviously. And so I started to think, right, okay, I want to flex those muscles, and I wrote a one-act play, and then the opportunity to write panto came because Eric Potts used to write the panto for Stoke, and then I would tinker with it a lot, and I, you know, kind of not fair to Eric really, because, you know, if his name is on the front of the script, then, you know, you don't want people to go, wait a minute, I didn't think that was, if it's my sense of humour and not Eric's, I didn't think that was very funny or something, you know, and then suddenly Eric's getting tarred with it. So Kev Wood then, you know, and Laura and George said, I think you're going to have to step up and write it solo. So I did. I had 1 year writing alongside Eric. We wrote a Dick Whittington together. And the year after, I was away then. That was me writing solely on my own. And I love it. But I've always done this. If there's an original story that forms the basis for the panto, so for example, J.M. Barrie's Peter Pan, or Beauty and the Beast, which is, without a shadow of a doubt, the most boring book I've ever read in my entire life. If you're having trouble sleeping, don't go to the doctor, just get a copy off eBay. God, I'll send you mine. And I like to know what I'm ruining. What's the story that I'm going to tear apart and retell in my own way? And the first, I think, major success with that for me in terms of panto was Peter Pan. And Johnny and myself, who do panto together up in Stoke, never wanted to do it because every time we saw it, we went, this is not panto. And it's got too much story in it and we don't want it and stuff. So, you know, I sort of had permission off Kevin to go wild then, go nuts, tear it apart. And I did. And I wanted actually to call it Peter Pan ... toe, so that people thought, okay, it's Peter Panto, you know, that's what it is, you know. We didn't do that in the end, but I really tore it apart. And I think more companies are doing that now, because the sooner you get out of the nursery and get on your way, the better. Some companies don't even include the nursery now.
So you've played all sorts of characters in panto over the years. Your relationship with Jonathan Wilkes that you mentioned a moment ago, that double act is now legendary in Stoke. But when did you first put the frock on? When did you play your first dame?
Ooh, gosh, that's good. So the first one, Baptism of Fire, that was 2006. And that was that was Cinderella, and that was with Graham Hoadley as Ugly Sister. But I don't really count Ugly Sister as Dame, really. It's funny that, isn't it? I always think, no, it's something quite separate from Dame. But that was the first time I donned the frock. And then the following year we did Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and I did Herman the Henchman, but sort of recreated what Herman was at that time. And then the following year we did Dick Winterton, and I was Sarah the Cook. So that was my first year as pantomime dame.
That relationship between the dame and the comic is vitally important. And, you know, very often different dames and comics will be put together each and every year. But there is no doubt, and they are brilliant, but there's no doubt you get better as you build that relationship up, don't you, over a number of years?
Martin, absolutely. And I agree, you know, a dame and a comic can be put together for a Christmas, and hey, great. They're fantastic because there's brilliant comics out there. There's brilliant dames, and providing they share the same sense of humour, they'll crack it. But how can that compare to the people that have stood on stage with each other for, you know, in some cases, 20 years plus, but in Johnny's case, in my case, 15 years plus. I know what he's going to say and do. If he goes off script, I know what he's going to say, what he's going to do, where he's going to come back better than he does. And likewise with me, you know. You just get used to that person's performing quality, the way they deliver a gag, when they see an opportunity in the audience, that they're going to go for it every time, that you've got the complete trust that they're going to come back and pick up deftly from where we left off. And to me, that relationship, it is a marriage. I was going to say it's a marriage, but there's no sex involved, but that's a marriage. But it is every bit as vital as, you know, chips with your fish, sauce with your burger. It's absolutely brilliant. And when you see it done beautifully, and I see a lot of pantos, and when you see it done beautifully, you go, this is truly, truly magic. And it has then vibes of the greats, you know, Eric and Ernie, Little and Large, Cannon and Ball, the great double acts, you know, the Crankies and all that. You see how being so close for that number of years, you know, it just adds another layer to it.
Well, you know what they say, marriage isn't just a word, it's a sentence.
Hey! There you go. My dog is barking in the background here, right? I think he's laughing at that one, right? I got to be honest. He loves that.
I think it's a protest, if I'm honest.
And listen, we've got to do... Every panto person will know this, you know. It was a very emotional wedding. Even the cake was in tears. Come on!
You also direct, of course, and I always think it's fascinating for somebody who directs and appears in a panto at the same time, because it's a difficult juggling act in a way, isn't it? You've got to have somebody alongside you as an extra pair of eyes at times, because you need somebody to step back and look at stuff that you're in, or at the tech and so on.
Yeah, and, you know, because it's a week rehearsal, pretty much straight into tech, there has been times where I've had to focus more on a couple of other characters in the panto, and then you get to the end of the week and Johnny goes, we haven't done our stuff. And you go, yes, of course, we've only done the scenes that we've been in with other people. And then he's really barking now. He's not enjoying this.
He's all right. He's definitely protesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, I hope he's adding texture to your radio and not ruining that. But that's Dodger. He's terrified of me, actually, when I'm in my dame costume. He doesn't come near me. It's really very weird. But yeah, so, you know, the external eye is absolutely vital. And for a number of years up in Stoke, we were very lucky to have Johnny's wife, Nikki Wilkes, who's just an amazing choreographer and one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And she's got an impeccable eye and great taste. So, you know, she can watch from out front. And when Nikki hasn't choreographed, it's been the equally wonderful and lovely James Bennett. He's providing a brilliant eye from out front. And in the days of FFE, it would have been Kev turning up or Laura turning up. And more recently with Crossroads, it's been Jake Hine. He's been our producer. So you've got to have somebody out front that you trust that can go, that's not quite working, and we could have a look at it then. And also, that goes, look, this is your panto, so if I don't agree with something, then strong arm me into doing it, you know?
This year is going to be rather different for you. We've talked about your film and television career, and people have seen you on all sorts of things on TV, Holby City and Doctors and Miss Selfridge and all sorts of other things. But you aren't doing panto this year because you've had an opportunity to do some filming, which is we can't talk about, but which is taking you away from Stoke.
It is, and I'm absolutely heartbroken about it. 2 opportunities came in, and my agent said, look, you know, I know what panto means to you, but I really think that we have to explore these 2 opportunities. One is a 10-part series for a big streaming service. The other one is a film with an Oscar-winning director. So, you know, and I'd be lying if I'm saying I'm front and centre in both of those projects, but my agent felt, right, okay, this is too good an opportunity. They both went to Michael Harrison, both my agents. They have a very good relationship with Michael. And Michael very kindly said, yeah, I agree. It's too good an opportunity to miss. But every time that somebody says to me, so you're not in panto in Stoke this year, like you have just done, oh my God, my stomach turns. And I just think, oh my God, no, I'm not, am I? You know, a lot of people are down on panto, Martin. You'll know that yourself. I know a close friend of mine, another close friend of mine who is a very renowned actor, said to him, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to stop doing panto. And I was furious because I think I am taken seriously as an actor, and I do panto and I love it. I'm often asked why I do panto, and my answer is this: I end the year laughing and I start the next year laughing. To me, that's absolutely vital. So I'm going to miss ending the year with a laugh and beginning the year with a laugh, because it definitely won't happen, because I'm going to be with my family.
Well, you'll have a Christmas at home, which, I mean, as long as you don't dress up, the dog will be happy, that's for sure.
He's terrified of me when I'm a Dane.
3 final questions to finish with, which we've asked all of our guests on the podcast so far. The first is, what's your favourite panto title?
Oh, easy. Aladdin. I think what Hamlet is to an aspiring young actor, Twanky is to a dame. It's the role that every dame wants to play. And I've often heard other people say, you know, oh, it's Twanky, it's Twanky, it's Twanky. And I didn't have an opportunity to play Twanky until about 4 years ago. And when I stepped into that frock, that particular frock, you feel a real sense of, this is the top of the iceberg for dames, you know?
I'm with you entirely on that. I think it's the perfect dame.
But you're a dame, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think I've done Twanky maybe 5 times.
She's a beaut, isn't she?
Oh, absolutely. The title is Aladdin, but Twanky is at the heart of the story. Warm character, everybody can relate to that sort of warm, supportive and motherly and so on. It's just such a lovely role to play, full of slapstick and comedy and the laundry, and yeah, absolutely, I love it. Things don't always go right though, do they? When was it not all right on the night in a panto for you?
I'd be easy saying when things did go right on the night. But there was one time in the Peter Pan that I told you about when we were doing a mastermind sketch, and during the dun 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 dun, the black chair got pushed on, and Johnny was supposed to wait for it to go past him and sit down, and then of course he'd land on the floor. But this one time he landed straight on the handle of the black chair, and there was like an almighty rip, and I thought, what was that? And I could see Johnny sort of give me the eye of, did you hear that then? And I could see what had happened, and I thought, oh my God, he's ripped his trousers. But when I say he'd ripped his trousers, I'm not talking about a couple of inches, or I'm talking from Land's End to John O'Scroats here, you know. And Johnny just showed all of the audience. He thought it was hilarious. I couldn't carry on because every time I asked a question, he was going, can you see that? Can you see that? He went into the crowd. He went in, you know, can you see this, love? Can you see that? You know, look at that, you know. And did all the gags about, stop looking at me, bum, you know. It was perfect before, but now it's got a crack right up the middle and all that sort of stuff, you know. And honest to God, it must have taken him about 10 minutes to come back to stage, at which time I'd almost wet myself laughing, which I've done twice on stage, not in panto, which I've done actually twice on stage, laughed so much that I thought, oh God, no, I've just wet myself. And that was the night when I just think to myself, yeah, that's Johnny Wilkes all over. But there was also when we did, the second time we did Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and the lovely Katie Ellen Salt played Snow White, and we were doing the wall routine, and Johnny and I had been out for a curry the night before, and we were just farting left, right and centre, to the point where Katie's got a very Welsh voice. She talks like this. And she suddenly went from Snow White into going, "Oh my God, it stinks back here. Are you two farting?" And we're trying to say, "I know, you're standing in line." And honest to God, I was absolutely beside myself with laughter. Things go wrong all the time, but a mistake is an opportunity for another gag.
In terms of panto itself as a theatre genre, why is panto so important to you?
Because it's ours. Nobody else in the world does it. It's just ours. And, you know, I've heard some people argue the same case for people like Shakespeare. They say, well, Shakespeare's ours. And you go, no, I get what you're saying. Of course he's ours. He was born and bred here. But he's performed all over the world. He's translated all over the world. Panto is ours. And I think that every theatre, and I include in that, I know they did it the year of lockdown, but I include in that places like the National Theatre and the RSC. Every company should have a panto because it should be a celebration of what is uniquely ours in the world of entertainment. And it's the first time that a child comes to panto, comes to theatre rather. If they're brought by Nan and Grandad, there's a possibility with some of the elderly people who come and see panto that it might be the last thing they see. So for me, performing to somebody that's their first time in the theatre and possibly their last time in the theatre, it's a real pleasure to do that. And I don't take that responsibility lightly.
For me, it's all about family. You mentioned going with grandparents and parents and so on, but over time there are fewer things that the family enjoy together. It used to be they'd sit round the radio and listen to some of the classic radio comedy together, then they would watch TV together, but families don't really do that now. Very rarely even sit round the table to eat together, but panto brings the family together, doesn't it?
Martin, you're absolutely right. Spoken like a true professional. It's absolutely right. It's the chance for a family to come out and know that. And also, for me, the brilliance of it is to write a gag that will have that child laughing so much, and then a gag that will make the mum and dad laugh that slightly goes over the kid's head, you know. It's making sure that there's something for everybody.
Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I hope to see you back next Christmas at Stoke in panto. All the best with the filming in the meantime, and your scripts will be enjoyed by panto audiences right across Wales this year. Christian, thank you for talking to us.
Martin, what an absolute pleasure. And as I say, I'm free this year. I'm going to do a little panto tour, I think, so I might find myself at the De Montfort Hall, in which case I'll knock on your door, come and say hello.
I look forward to seeing you, Christian. Thanks again.
Take care.
And with that, I'm afraid we've run out of time again for the penultimate episode of 2022. Don't forget to subscribe to the series to catch up with any episodes you've missed so far, and make sure you don't miss out in the future. Next time, we have a rather special edition to celebrate Christmas 2022 and the pantomime season, so make sure you join me then for episode 44.
Thank you for listening to the latest edition of Just Imagine, the podcast series from Imagine Theatre. And you can find out more by going to www.imaginetheatre.co.uk.